catastrophe model is a good model because it combines arousal with anxiety as well. So two conditions: low cognitive anxiety, I'm not worried about the competition, I have no concerns. High cognitive anxiety, I am worried, I have some concerns, I think I might not win, I think I might not be able to perform well, etc. The first thing to note is that we can get a better performance here. This is the graph that you need to concentrate on. This one's there to make a bit of a comparison. So compare the best performance that we can get with when I'm not worried about the competition. I get this inverted U theory relationship, and I get an okay performance. When I have worries, Hardy and crew say that we can get a better performance. So as arousal increases, performance increases up to an optimal point. Mention that in your answer. And the idea here is that if I'm able to control my arousal, and that's the key, alright, if I can't control my arousal, we'll come to that in a second, but if I'm able to keep my arousal under control, I can get a better performance, even though I've got cognitive anxiety. Now that goes against what we said before, that cognitive anxiety is bad for us, but what Hardy and colleagues suggest is that by having those worries, that performers are capable of performing better, because of, if we link it into things like the need to avoid failure and stuff like that. So in an Olympic final, it's natural that even top performers will have some worries. They'll have high cognitive anxiety. We saw things from people like Kelly Holmes, Michael Johnson, when they were in their Olympic finals, they were worried. They were thinking, what am I doing here? The pressure's getting to me. What if I don't win? Those types of concerns. But because they kept their arousal levels under control, they were able to get a better performance and probably a lifetime best performance. This is why we see world records in Olympic finals a lot, and top performances on the biggest stages quite a lot. The best performers are the ones who can control their emotions on those occasions. If I can't control my emotions, I can't control my arousal, what happens is, so as arousal continues to increase, performance doesn't just go nicely down like inverted U theory suggests, it suffers dramatically. So there's a dramatic loss in performance. Alright, we have a nightmare. This is the catastrophe that occurs. So I don't just get gradually worse, I have an absolute shocker. Alright, so I go completely. And we see loads of examples of this in sport, where people, they can't handle the pressure, they've got far too nervous, and they have an absolute nightmare on the big occasion normally, because they've got high cognitive anxiety. So when we get high cognitive anxiety and high arousal, or over arousal, that's where the catastrophe occurs. Now then, once the catastrophe's occurred here, I can go one of two ways. If I remain in that state of high arousal, my performance will continue to suffer. Alright, I might as well just go home or pack in. But if I'm able to calm myself down, alright, I'm able to get back, I'm able to lower my arousal levels again. I might need to use stress management techniques, I might need to use relaxation. I am capable of getting back to here and getting back up to a good performance. Now this might need a sport that allows me that time to calm down, where I have a break in between. So things like athletics, where I might have a break in between each of my jumps, or different events in heptathlon, for example. It would be more difficult to do in a team sport, but obviously I might be able to do that at half time, for example. Ways of measuring anxiety: I can use observation, I can use interviews. Alright, observation is good because it's out there in the natural environment, it's ecologically valid. Same with interviews, but obviously they take more time and they require high levels of skill from the interviewer or observer. We can also look at questionnaires. Alright, so know a little bit about one of the questionnaires at least. Okay, so these questionnaires measure different things. The SCAT test on the left hand side measures your trait anxiety and therefore predicts state anxiety, because we know that that has an effect on state anxiety. The the competition state anxiety inventory measures three things. It gives you cognitive and somatic anxiety and confidence as well. So this is a good questionnaire because obviously it identifies whether you're suffering from cognitive or somatic anxiety. Right, if I'm going to improve anxiety or reduce anxiety as a coach, I might get my performers to use imagery. So important about the image is that we use all the senses, alright, that we get the feel of things, we get the visualization, alright, and it needs to be positive. I need to see myself doing something well. It might also be that I feel in my image, I get the feel, so I use all the senses, so I get feelings of being anxious. So practice being anxious, alright, so if you're going to be anxious when you play, alright, be anxious in your image, alright, and then overcome it, then have a positive outcome. So it's important you get a positive outcome so that we get rid of the anxiety. I could also there use a bit of mental rehearsal to practice the skill, overlearn the skill, and therefore I will get better. Now can you also use positive self-talk? So within positive self-talk I can stop the negative thoughts, thought stopping. I can rationalise those thoughts, I can put them into context, make them less threatening, make them not as bad as they might seem. So, oh, that's only one mistake I've made, something like that. I can counter against that the argument that I've said how bad I am. So just counter against it and say, no, come on, you're not that bad, you can do this. And also I can use attentional control. So I can start to focus on the task, focus on the process. I might need to alter my attentional field from narrow to broad or the other way around, depending on what I'm doing, so that I'm not focusing on being anxious. If I'm competing and thinking about being anxious, then I'm not concentrating on what I should be concentrating on. So I can start to try to do that. Somatic techniques. So I can use progressive muscular relaxation, which is taking each muscle group at a time and tensing and then relaxing those muscles. So that helps me to acquire the skill of being able to relax them when they are tense, which is a good skill to have when I'm out there competing. Mixed with that I might use breath control. So here I would use deep breaths, breathing out for longer, which is where when we breathe out it's a more passive process, it's a more relaxed process physiologically, so that helps us calm down. The other thing I can link in there is centering, that isn't on the board. Centering is focusing all your energy into the centre of your body, or for example someone like Johnny Wilkinson focuses all his energy into his left leg when he kicks for goal. And biofeedback, it doesn't necessarily reduce anxiety, but it's a good method of teaching us how to know when we are anxious. So biofeedback hooks us up to a machine that might measure things like temperature and sweating and heart rate and blood pressure and all that sort of stuff. So it tells us when we're tense. So it puts us into different conditions and it measures and tells us when we're tense. What that does, it allows us as a performer to associate the fact of how do I feel right now when the computer is telling me that I am tense. And therefore when I'm out there in the competing and I feel the same way again, I can associate that with, well, when I felt like this in the lab, the computer told me that I was tense. Therefore I'm tense now and I maybe need to do some relaxation. So always with anxiety management, reducing anxiety, always split them up into cognitive and somatic techniques.